Hello everybody. I know I'm looking that way. Oh, sorry, I'll do it this way. Hang on. Right. This is what... Recently, in the UK, there have been votes on something called Brexit. Now, if you're not familiar with Brexit, well, hang on. Let's get to the beginning here. First of all, at the bottom at the moment, you should be seeing a colour and a title of the sort of section of the video. If you want to go to a particular section, I'll have them linked in the video description, and you just go from colour to colour to colour to colour. So you scroll across until you hit the right colour you want to talk about, because this is going to be a long one. Today I'm going to talk to you about Brexit, why I think we're in an infinite loop, and how the hell are we going to get out of it. So, this is going to be blue, because it does the Europeans, and it's about Brexit. So, what is Brexit? Where are we at? And what's going on? So, Brexit is the act of the UK leaving the European Union. Basically, those bunch of countries beside the UK, we're leaving them. Fine. We're leaving their sort of cabal of states, which I personally voted to leave the EU. Now, there's a reason for that. Well, there are three reasons. One, I wanted control of our borders back, especially since the migrant crisis, which, yes, you can call me a bastard for saying it is a bad thing, but there was something I could see on the horizon. The migrants who settle in European countries, could then, once they settled for a few years, go straight into the UK with no problem. We couldn't stop them. That I did not want. We are talking people I do not want in my country because they've been told that they've got to settle in the EU. Let's face it, the people in the EU don't want them. I don't want them. Nobody wants them. So that was one of the reasons I voted to leave the European Union. The next reason was I wanted control of our laws back. Basically, I wanted sovereignty back for our country. We've had 40 years of being under the EU's thumb. Most of it's been good, but for the past 5 or 6 years, it's been, 10 years, it's been getting a little silly. People have been able to sort of circumvent our rules, which is not a good thing. We are not part of Europe. We are an island next to Europe. We're quite a big island. I'll explain that in a next thing. But I wanted our sovereignty back. And also, the last reason was I wanted the EU to be out of our laws. So, what does that mean? I can't remember the year, it was, I think, 4 years ago? No. 4 or 5 years ago, a bloke called Abu Hamza, a radical Muslim cleric, was arrested in the UK. Nothing wrong with that. He was put up for trial, and he was convicted. The problem comes when Abu Hamza, or I'm not sure if it was Abu Hamza, it was somebody, went to the European Court of Justice. Why the hell are you going to the European Court? You're in our country. You broke one of our laws. It blows my mind. That is one of the main reasons I wanted to get out of the EU. That is why I voted for Brexit. Now, that is my reasons. That's what Brexit is. getting back laws, getting back sovereignty, being able to trade with other people without being stuck to EU laws. That is vital in my mind. So that is a quick and messy view on Brexit, what Brexit is. Okay? Whatever colour I choose for the next topic, which is negotiation. We screwed it up. We didn't go in to the negotiations 2 years ago saying we are leaving on WTO rules. Now, WTO means World Trade Organization. Now, World Trade Organization is basically a body that trades around the world. It basically monitors trade. You can trade with anyone with WTO rules. It's like a default. Basically, it's the default skin for trading, if you can think of it like that. WTO rules. Okay, you've got things which are tariffs. Now, if you don't know what a tariff is like, say, I trade you my phone, and you trade me your iPhone. But as it's different makes, as it's different models, there's a tariff because I've got to learn, you got to learn. So we each pay each other X much because no, that's not quite right. A tariff is basically a tax that is paid on certain goods. Butter, things like that. Tariffs can be good in some instances. The steel industry needs the tariffs because, well, if it doesn't have tariffs, China, who has a hell of a lot of steel for some reason, can just flood the market and basically nobody else will buy any steel from anyone but China. If you flood the market with cheap stuff, people will buy the cheapest stuff. But if there is too much tariffs on it, which is on Chinese steel, I think, you've got the problem of, well, that's fine, great, we'll choose local steel. I think I botched that, but that is what a tariff is. It basically gives sort of cash to the country who you have to give extra cash to the person you're importing to. So if you're Germany, you're importing BMWs, Mercedes to us, you have to give us extra cash because you're importing those cars. That's fine. So tariffs can be good. WTO rules has tariffs, but in other words, you can say, we're not going to put any tariffs on some things. It's an open rule book for whatever country you are who runs WTO rules. If you want to say, we are not going to put any tariffs on lemons because we don't have any, and you're a country that's got tons of lemons, sell them to us, we're not going to put any tariffs on them, that's fine. But if we're a country that has a lot of lemons and you want to sell us your lemons, we're going to put a tariff on it. Do you see? It's a bit of a complicated way of saying it, but that is what WTO rules are. There are basic set of rules that everyone really should follow. It's basically the default skin in Fortnite. Everyone usually follows these rules. You either follow the EU rules, which are very, very stupid. They are ridiculously stupid. They have actually stopped me eating one of my favourite things. We used to go, I think it's more than 15 years ago. We used to get from Magro these thin, and I do mean thin, battered down steak slices, sort of round things from Canada, I think they were. And they were gorgeous. And apparently, because it's outside the EU, there are tariffs on it. Because the EU do not want you eating other things than EU product. You're a part of the EU. You've got to eat EU stuff, which I think is a bit dumb. And that is stupid. Really, really stupid. It was one of my favourite things. Used to have them with a bit of lettuce, tomato, and they were gorgeous. They were absolutely gorgeous. Slice of bread. So that tariffs can cause problems, but that is because you are outside the EU, running on the WTO rules. Now, WTO rules, if you're in WTO rules and you say the Americans want to sell us something, you don't have to put a tariff on it. You are not going through anyone else's rules, you're just going by the same rules. Where rules intersect, say WTO rules and EU rules, then you get the problem, then you get the tariffs. Now, I know this is not quite right. I know I might be saying absolute twat waffle, but this is how I understand it. Now, that is WTO rules. Now, WTO rules are very important. This is a section you should know about. So, if I say go back to that section, if you missed it, please do come back to this section. Right. Now, what is no deal Brexit? A no deal Brexit is basically what it says on the tin. A no deal Brexit is where we go straight from being European to not being European, running on WTO rules, which I said in the last section, and basically running by their rules. We wouldn't have to pay back money. We would not need to go by their laws. We'd basically copy-paste, mostly, because most of them are good. We'd slowly weed out the crap ones. Article 13 being one of them from the telecommunications laws for Europe, which are... but that's another section entirely. I do think no deal Brexit is the way to go. Now, that is a very, very simplistic view of what no deal is. No deal is we do not have any how do I put it? There's no terms to the deal. We are just walking out with nothing. We get nothing, they get nothing. There are no concessions. There's not even any trade deals with the European Union. We haven't got any trade deals. After that, you start doing the trade deals. So that is what no deal Brexit is. Now, our current situation, or as of the 13th of March at 2200 hours, so that's 9 o'clock, we have the UK MPs have voted against going no deal. Okay, so what's the problem? We're not going no deal, but in law, hang on, I forgot when are we leaving? When are we leaving? Oh. When are we leaving the EU? the 29th of March. Now that is... So we are currently on the 13th of March, and on the 29th, we're leaving. Okay. So we've basically said no deal Brexit is apparently, now I'm going to put inverted commas in this. This is something I really do not believe, because I'll explain that later, is apparently off the table. So what's on the table? Theresa May's deal. Right, Theresa May's deal has gone via the European Union. They seem to like it. That's great. It's gone through Parliament twice, and they voted it out. So basically, they're not wanting to do it. Okay. So where do you go from here? There's no deal, which we don't want. We voted that down twice today. As I'm recording this, today, we voted it down in a couple of hours ago. Before I recorded this, we voted it down twice. And the day before, we voted down Theresa May's no deal. Right. So, two pillars. Both of them aren't there anymore. We're building a bridge called Brexit. Okay. So the bridge is from us being in the EU to us no longer being in the EU. Okay. And on that, with this law, that was basically the first thing we did, Article 50, which was saying we want to leave the EU, was this time period. This is the time period that the EU set many years ago. This was Article 50 that they wrote down. Basically, you have 2 years to get the hell out. Okay. We have been spending 2 years fanny-arsing about because the EU has said you can't start trade negotiations until you've exited. Big mistake, but I'll get onto that in another section. So the problem is on the 29th of March we leave. Now what does that mean? We don't leave with no deal, and we don't live with a deal. But the no deal has been voted down by Parliament. So is the deal. So what the hell happens? Right. So in theory, we leave with no deal. Even though it's been voted down by Parliament, the law says we leave. So we will leave. We are good at obeying the law in the UK for some arse backwards reason. We leave the EU. So where's the infinite loop? Well, there is a vote that we can do. We can basically say, we can vote in Parliament to say, we would like an extension. The EU can say, yes, of course. Or the EU can go, no, go away. Sort it out. But I have a funny feeling the EU are going to say yes. Right, fine. The EU says a 21-month extension, so that's about 2 years. A 21-month extension on leaving the EU. Okay. We go through those 21 months. Now, Theresa May's deal has been ratified by the EU, and they are saying they are not going to change their minds at all. Now, the EU are quite stubborn sods at the best of times. And they say they're not going to change the deal. Right, fine. So where do you go from there? You go to no deal. We just voted that down twice. Now, if you're not familiar with computers, there is something called an infinite loop, where you start something and you end up right where you began. And this is where I think we're stuck. Because if Parliament basically says, we want an extension, and the EU says yes, we are going to be stuck in an infinite loop until somebody says no. Because, let's face it, the EU does not want us leaving without a deal. It's not good for them. I think it's going to be great for us, because it's a kick in the teeth to business slightly. We're going to have tariffs on things like imported goods, like BMWs, Mercedes, as I've said. And the problem is that how should I put this? We give more to the EU by basically buying EU things. BMWs, Mercedes, things like that, Peugeots, Renaults, things of that ilk. We give more than we take. Well, we take more than we give. So say the Europeans decide Aston Martins, I know that's not really a European company, but it's an example. No, hang on. Rolls-Royce. Say Rolls-Royce, no, that's German, shit. McLaren. That's it, McLaren. Right. Say there's high tariffs on McLaren sports cars. All right. Well, no. All right. Let's go back to Aston's. I know this is a bad analogy, but let's go with it. Say there is a high tariff to exporting Aston Martin cars made in Europe. Okay. That would be shooting themselves in the foot, because what we would do would be exactly the same as them. We would put high tariffs on imports of luxury sports cars. Maybachs and things, which is a Mercedes brand. They don't want no deal. I think if we went no deal, it would hurt the UK economy, but it would hurt for a while, and then we would settle down. It's like taking off a plaster. It hurts to begin with, but then it cools down. Then it settles down. Then it sort of works. Let's face it. You think about it and you think, well, why do you want this no deal? Well, no deal is better than a deal where we're basically stuck in the middle of no man's land. Because of the Irish and what is it? It's the Northern and Southern Ireland. Between those two, Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, there's this little border. One side is European, the other side is British. Well, not British, but unionist, so wants to stay in the Union. Okay. Both sides don't want a border between Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. Okay, so what's the problem? If we go to WTO rules, there would have to be a border. Okay, so nobody wants to go to WTO rules. Fine. Why are we not going for the deal? The deal says something about a backstop where we still have to have a land border. And we still have to have a border in Northern Ireland, or on Ireland. The island of Ireland. Ugh. So, one way we don't want, the politicians don't want, which is basically Theresa May's deal, which the Europeans quite like, because we're not going to get a border. We don't want a border on the island of Ireland. The other way is we're going to get the border anyway, but we get no deal, and nobody seems to like that anyway. And the third option is ask for an extension where we get back to option 1 and 2. I hope you understand this. I hope you clarify where we are. We are in an infinite loop. It is the stupidest thing, and I don't think anybody else is seeing it. Because, tell me I'm wrong. If you understand this better than I do, I think I could. I am quite logical, and I've got clarity on what I'm thinking. Some of the small minutiae I might get wrong, but I know the basics of the thing. I know basically it's looking like I know what the car looks like, sort of thing. Doesn't mean I know how every single circuit works, but I know what the car looks like. Okay, it is an infinite loop. So, in the comments, if you understand what the hell I'm saying, and if you agree with me, tell me, am I wrong about this? Am I just talking absolutely out of my arse? Because I don't think I am. Because if we go out with no deal, that's fine. We're out. That's great. But nobody seems to want to do that. But we don't seem to want to go for the deal either. Where do we go from here? Infinite loop land, where we're always stuck nearing the end of Brexit. That's going to be fun. I'd rather have no Brexit at all, thank you very much. Because this causes problems. Business doesn't like uncertainty. Let's face it, if at the beginning 2 years ago, our intro position to saying what we do to the EU to leave the European Union was WTO rules, can you do anything better? And basically said, if you say no, we're going to walk out the door. Because WTO rules is pulling off the plaster, but business would know that we're pulling off the plaster very early. They have 2 years to get their stuff in order. And it would have been great. It would have been, it's going to hurt for at least, I'd say, 5 years. Now, 5 years isn't that long. We have fought wars, I think. Yeah, I think we fought wars about that length. And that does not last that long. Let's face it, we have fought wars against the Europeans and won. Okay, this was with US's help. But, it annoys me. I want you to write in the comments right now, do you see the infinite loop? If you see where I'm coming from, if you see what I'm saying, please tell me. Or am I just one of these wacko jobs? I know I might look like a wacko job, but there is quite a lot of intelligence in there. My spelling is abysmal, but... So, thank you guys for watching this far. I hope you have watched this far. Is Brexit in an infinite loop? Thank you guys for watching. Goodbye.